Thank you for joining us. I'm Victoria Sanchez. And first at noon, there are just 28 days until the Democratic National Convention. And the scramble is on to find someone to put on the ticket now that President Biden will no longer continue his re-election campaign. And many believe his vice president will be the one to face off with Donald Trump. This morning, Maryland Governor Wes Moore gave his endorsement for Kamala Harris, saying Kamala Harris will move us forward towards a brighter future for all. She is the fighter we need at this moment to realize the full promise of our nation. Earlier today, 7 News asked George Washington University Associate Professor Peter Lowes why other top Democrats have not announced their support for Harris as the next presidential candidate.
First is it's really very early in the process. It isn't even 24-hour-old news at this point. The second is they might be waiting to see how this plays out, right? This has to look like it's not a coronation, that there's a chance for others to jump into the race. This is up to the delegates to decide. This isn't up to President Obama or Senator Schumer or Mr. Jeffries to decide.
Now we want to take a closer look at the political road that Harris took to become vice president and now a front runner for the Democratic presidential nomination.
And when we fight, we win.
All eyes on Vice President Kamala Harris. President Biden endorsing his VP as the Democratic nominee and 59-year-old Harris accepting.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
She made history as the first woman to serve as vice president after blazing new trails in public service. A former San Francisco prosecutor, she was later elected California's Attorney General, the first female and first person of color in that position before going on to be elected to the U.S. Senate in 2017. Harris became known for her work on the Judicial and Intelligence Committees with a strong stance on civil and abortion rights, which she grilled future Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh about during his nomination hearing.
Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now.
As vice president, Harris has taken the lead on the abortion rights issue following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade.
America must trust women. America must honor individual choice. America must defend freedom.
She's also taken on immigration. In 2021, President Biden tasking her to lead the diplomatic efforts with 3 Central American countries to address the root causes of migration. The White House praising her work. But after migrant encounters hit record levels before decreasing, Republicans hit Harris on the hot button issue.
Kamala had one job, and that was to fix the border. Now imagine her in charge of the entire country.
Before her VP role, Harris had presidential ambitions, taking on former President Donald Trump.
He's tearing us apart. She'll bring us together.
Married for 10 years to lawyer Doug Emhoff, Harris is known as Mamala to her stepchildren Ella and Cole. When she was chosen as vice president, she reflected on the historic moment with Robin.
I will be the first. But I will not be the last. You know, I was raised by a mother who said that to me all the time. Kamala, you may be the first to do many things. Make sure you're not the last. And that's how I feel about this moment.
Today, a House committee is hearing from the director of the Secret Service after the failed assassination attempt on former President Trump. Kimberly Cheadle called the incident her agency's most significant operational failure in decades during her testimony. She took responsibility for the attempt on the former president's life, but pointed out the suspect was seen by law enforcement with a rangefinder before the shooting, but says rangefinders are not a prohibited item at events like a rally. Lawmakers are also grilling Cheadle about the agency's recent acknowledgement that previous requests by the Trump campaign for more security were denied. And Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is naming a bipartisan panel to do an independent review of the Trump assassination attempt. The security experts include former Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano and Mark Phillip, a former federal judge and deputy attorney general to President George W. Bush. Sources familiar with the matter say the independent review is an effort by officials to get ahead of congressional reviews and hearings happening on Capitol Hill. The independent review comes at the request of President Biden. Secretary Mayorkas told reporters last week he wanted the review up and running in a matter of days. Despite his withdrawal from the race, President Biden is still set to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this week. A person familiar with the president's schedule confirmed Biden will host Netanyahu at the White House. But the exact timing of the meeting has not been established because Biden is still recovering from COVID. Netanyahu is scheduled to address Congress on Wednesday. He's also expected to meet with Vice President Kamala Harris today.